Hi, everybody. It's Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Sophie Wade. Sophie, great for you to join us.
Delight to be here.
Good. You're in Edinburgh, actually, in Scotland at the moment, but where can people find you?
They can find me at flexcelnetwork.com, on Twitter at @ASophieWade, and also on LinkedIn. So I look forward to.
And today we're going to talk about 3 ways to lead with empathy. Now it's when we talked to prepare for this, I wrote a note down in my book that you said that you were to do with the future of work, but actually we're in the future of work, aren't we?
We are, and it has been accelerated. We have been almost in the future of work in many ways, but with the COVID-19 crisis, it has accelerated and forced it upon us in an extraordinary way.
And when we talk about, I think it's probably worth having a reset in terms of what do you mean by empathy? Because I see a lot of people talking about should you be selling or not you should be selling, and generally that tends to be some sort of macho thing. But what is empathy, and what is it that we should understand about empathy?
So I take the definition that empathy is putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and not only thinking about their perspective, their way of thinking about things, but also feeling what they are experiencing. It is that combination of understanding what they're going through, how they're thinking about things, and what they're going through. So there are 3 components to that, which is sort of the thinking, how they're thinking, the feeling, how they're feeling, and then how you act differently as a result of understanding more about your colleague, your family member, or whomever it is that you're dealing with.
Because we're talking here about leading with empathy. We're now thrown into a position where many of us are working remotely, and the workforce is remote. We're probably having to lead remotely. I mean, even today, when talking about people going back to work, I mean, it's not going to be en masse. But we need to. So how is it that we actually lead with empathy and empower our people moving forward? What is it that we need to do? What is it that we need to unlock?
I think, as far as the unlocking goes, there's a Dutch primatologist called Frans de Waal, and he says that empathy is second nature to us. So it's not that we have to unlock it so much overall, but it's actually using it in our work interactions. I was going to say the workplace, but of course the workplace could be working from home. But it really is just practicing empathy in our work interactions, which we haven't been doing for the most part. And that historically, as far as I see it, is because we did think for the longest time that money was sufficient. That was what we believed for the last 100 years, that money, you pay people and therefore they had to do their work and that was it. But now we actually really understand that gets people to show up and sort of do things, but don't put extra effort, don't do the best job that they can. So for a leader, what that means is really trying to understand what the other person is going through, what their perspective is, and really trying to help them do their best work, be their best selves, because we each work very differently. We each appreciate different types of managerial oversight. Some people can be left completely independently. Some people need a lot more, minimal milestones or very frequent check-ins. So as a leader, it really means sort of understanding a lot more. It's less of the command and control, which was sort of 100 years ago, and like telling people what to do. Because obviously, you're not in the office together. And so it really becomes that much more important to understand what people's situations are, the conditions they're working in. Some people may be working in a tiny apartment with 2 small children and really trying to juggle everything. Somebody else might be completely isolated and having a very difficult time that way. So tapping into people's experience, what they're dealing with, how they're approaching something, so that if you see somebody who seems distracted, who seems not totally with it, you can try and work out by asking thoughtful questions and really listening carefully to the answer. Like, are they distracted because of something that's going on that you can't see? Is it to do with the project? Or, what else is going on? Maybe they don't have the technology support that they need. So, that's what leadership here is about. It's really being able to connect across the divide and find out what's going on so you can give them the best support that possible.
Because I think that certainly from the people that work for DLA Ignite, we've got all kinds of people from people who are single right through to I've got a person who's got a non-verbal autistic son. Mm-hmm. And I've just told that person to, you just need to go away and sort. Right. Because, it's pointless turning up to work because you're just going to be distracted. And, if he needs 24-hour care, go and just go and do it.
Right.
And that right through to people that are obviously are able to, their children have long gone and flown the nest. So
right.
We have to understand that people have these different circumstances, and as leaders, we don't want to be putting pressure on pressure.
No, and if we focus on results, if managers and leaders focus on results, then you're empowering somebody to do it when and how and as they need under their conditions. So if they need to take 24 hours to sort something out, but they still get their work done by Friday, it shouldn't really matter as long as that is, according to the same timeline for the critical path or whatever it might be. So the results focus really can be helpful, moving some leaders away from, I need people, I need to see people, I need to know that they're there, I would prefer to monitor their computers. That's not going to empower people, particularly now when we're dealing with a much faster, much accelerated time frame, and there's so much uncertainty. We're needing to pivot. We're needing to take on new information, new understanding, iterate. And if you are allowing people to take that, to sort of have the ability to have the information that they need, assess what's going on, and be able to deliver back updates that are really going to be relevant for the current conditions, that's really going to help you as a leader and empower them in the right way to move forward under these extraordinary conditions.
And what do you think of the communication challenges that people have? Because if you're leading with empathy and you've got lots of people, we can assume that everybody's going to be different.
Yep. Oh yes. Yes. So it. Look, I mean, there are abundant articles right now that I've been looking at saying how, exhausting it can be, being on Zoom calls or whatever kind of video calls that you're doing hours and hours a day. Of course, because you're focusing that much harder trying to get information from the signals from somebody else. Not only you're sort of trying to communicate and communicate your presence and leadership in different ways, but you're also trying to gather that information, which is why video is so helpful, because you can, I can sort of see your face, I can see other people, kind of like, are they focused? Are they sort of, distant? Are they, leaning forward? Are they leaning back? All those sort of things. And that does require a lot of concentration. So being able to get a sense of how they work best under these conditions, and also you work best under these conditions, and being able to encourage everybody to take breaks and manage your time and this new type of communication, recognizing what it's good for, what the challenges are, and being judicious about when you actually need to have a meeting. I mean, we can't be in meetings 8 hours a day. And there's a great, terrible stat which said that 70 or 71% of people think that meetings are a waste of time. Because there are lots and lots of meetings you don't need to be in, because people haven't thought, or they sort of thought, oh, yeah, Tim should probably be there. Rather than saying, you need to be in this meeting. You can catch up with somebody afterwards, but you can choose to be in this meeting if you have time, or can we handle it another way? So there are, I think, really trying to focus our attention, have efficient meetings, have meeting agendas, share information beforehand so that we actually get done in the meeting what we really need to get done. There are lots of ways that we can work a lot more effectively with these tools.
Yeah, we use Slack an awful lot in terms of the and it's fantastic for remote work and doing, very short, sharp communications with people.
Exactly. And so that you can sort of drop in, you can ask a quick question without having to set up a whole meeting. I mean, I think there are lots of meetings that will soon or have been, people been realizing, oh, actually, there were only a few little points that I needed to understand. And I could have done that using a chat channel. So having, using Slack or other chat channels are very important. Setting yourself up to have the right tools is very important to be able to use your time and everybody else's effectively.
So what do you see as everyone's now moving to remote working. And so we're going to have a decentralized workforce. What are the challenges and what is it that we need to do as leaders with a decentralized workforce? Because I've seen tools where you can basically check up on your employees and see what they're doing. I was aghast, I must admit, when someone demonstrated that to me.
Yes.
So, question to you. I mean, what do you see as the way of leading when you've got a decentralized decentralized workforce?
Well, first of all, I did see an article last week, which was on SHRM, which is the Society of Human Resource Management, that was basically saying that only 5% of human resource executives think that extensive use of remote working is going to exist, in the coming months, which I was very surprised about, and I don't think it's actually realistic. I think in some places where the virus has been under great control, but I think a lot of people, no matter what, are going to be scared to go back to work, and I think really supporting them empathetically is going to be very important. So the question is, how much decentralization? I think there should be a lot, because I think once you take it on board and really work out how to do it effectively, it can reduce your real estate costs. It can really help people be productive. So I think many people have found that an optimal sort of formula for a lot of people is for them to be working in the office 2 to 3 days a week and working from home 2 to 3 days a week. And that would work in terms of, I know that many organizations who are doing sort of A team, B team. A team is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, B team is Tuesday, Thursday, and that. So you're allowing the office to be less populated when that phase of easing comes. And that would allow, days where you can see people, you can have meetings, obviously distanced, but allow those sort of personal connections to happen in the office still. And then other times when people can really, really focus and get some work in isolation done, if that's how they are most productive. So it's really understanding. The key for all of this in terms of distributed teams is for leaders to understand each person individually, because how we work has always been different. But when we had very rigid constraints about how we did it, we never really noticed, well, most people haven't noticed overtly how we each work differently. Am I a morning person? Am I an evening person? Do I really like working in isolation, or do I do my best work when I have the buzz of the team around me, even if we're not doing teamwork? So I think people are having more of an understanding now under these forced conditions, but really sort of leaning into that and allowing people and really sort of recognizing how people work best and how to bring teams together, and using empathy to also encourage empathetic behavior between team members so that they can communicate accurately, listen really carefully. Is that what you meant, Tim? I mean, I heard what you said, and I'm thinking that this is what you meant. Can you confirm that? Really having that understanding, and so enabling that kind of empathetic communication, and obviously which helps collaboration. That's going to really be helpful in the future as we work together under accelerated and uncertain conditions.
Yeah, we there was a vote. I have a team call, and there was a vote by 2 of the members that the next one we did would be fancy dress.
Oh, I love that.
So we did that, but I knew. I liked it, but I knew that there were certain individuals that wouldn't turn up because I know they don't like making fools of themselves.
Right.
And that's one of those things where I went through it, and I actually said on Slack to people, look, you don't have to turn up if you don't want to. Please don't feel forced that you want to do it. And the people that I knew wouldn't turn up made their excuses and left.
Well, you could also suggest to them fancy dress, which is really, is in line with how they feel. So it could be very demure, it could be very subtle, and so they still feel that they're participating, everybody, and they can be there with everybody else, but not making a fool of themselves.
Yes.
So I think there are, but so doing things like that, which is sort of, and particularly as a leader to be able to put yourself forward and make, and appear to make a fool of yourself. I love fancy dress, so I'm totally with you on that. I think those things are important because it's like going bowling. Often there's like a couple of secret amazing bowlers, and the leader, CEO, whoever it might be, makes a complete fool of themselves, and everybody loves that. It's like, we're all in this together, and some people are great at it and some people aren't. What were you, by the way?
My partner has a gangster outfit. And so I basically said to some people said, well, I'm not just going to turn up I said, just put a hat on.
Right.
I said, because if you're if all we can see really is your top half and the hat, so just wear a hat. So one person actually came from the gym. She said bottom half, she was like the gym stuff, but she put a top on and a hat, and we couldn't tell that she'd just come from the gym. So
Perfect.
But I agree. I mean, I'm pretty rubbish at bowling. I will always be probably at the bottom, but actually, I actually like doing bowling and saying to people, I can't bowl, so teach me how to do it.
Yeah. And I think just, everybody mucking in and doing all kinds of different things. They're also, HubSpot, they have, in the sales group, they have a lot of, obviously the sales group were traveling a huge amount. And they did monthly Trivial Pursuit games and other different types of ways to connect in fun ways that, everybody or most people could participate in, that allowed people to deepen their relationship, which is really important for empathy, because the more that you have either both shared experiences, but also find common ground. What TV shows do you have in common? Obviously there's no sports going on right now, but typically, right, what's going on with your team, or, venting about kids or whatever it is, but having those points of common connection are really important. So, also having a shared memory of, oh my God, do you remember, with your gangster outfit? Those type of things are really key to making those connections, and allowing some wiggle room if on both ways if something's off, because that person better.
Yeah, and I think that we probably have to adjust these things as we go on as well, because where we were on the 11th of March is not where we are on the 11th of May. And it will continue every day and every month, I'm guessing.
Yes. And this is a key thing about empathy right now, and continuing, is that not only is business changing and evolving and iterating, and how you're doing, also you don't know how somebody's family is doing, and somebody who, everybody was fine 2 weeks ago, and then the following week something's off, and something could have happened, and they could be positive, and there could be a huge amount of worry. Also thinking about, as we move forward, you don't know for your business's customers, because as customers, depending on where your customers were, how those particular markets are opening up, and how customers are also changing their needs. I saw this incredible statistic, which was that 33% of Chinese or customers in China have changed brands during their lockdown, and 20% said that they would stick with the new brand that they chose, going forward. Who knows what the stats are going to be like in the States, and different places will be different because there's been different sort of levels of lockdown, changing behavior in different ways. And so, where is my market going to be this week or next month? And, continuing to evaluate how customers are responding, and being very empathetic towards them about what they're going through, and how to sell to them too.
So it's about being adaptive and responsive, you would say.
Very much, very much in all ways. Emotionally, thinking about the people's mental state, and obviously physical state as well potentially, and just and how they're working and how they're being really thoughtful about and forgiving about what might be going on or in their situation that in previous times you might kind of like, come on, they've got to get with it, but now we're dealing with a lot more delicate situations than we have in the past.
So what do you think about this view that nobody changes in times of crisis?
Really? Who's saying that?
I've written it as a note on the end of the when we talked last, and it's interesting because I've tested that with people. And
I see.
Nobody changes in the time, and in fact, what you do is you go back to you go back to your natural state because you're so scared.
Right.
You go back to this. It's like someone presses a reset button with you.
Yes. Well, I think we're consistent. I think my point there was that if somebody who never dropped by your office when we were at the office isn't necessarily going to drop by, if you have an open Zoom. The CMO of Workfront, Heidi Mellon, she's been a remote leader for a very long time, and she is, as their CMO, she doesn't live in or work in Utah where the headquarters are. But right now she's doing a lot of leaving a Zoom room open so people can just drop by. But she said, I'm not going to expect somebody who never dropped by my office when I'm in, at the headquarters to drop by my Zoom room. They just know who they are. So consistent behaviors. And this is where we sort of need to try and track and monitor people's behaviors to see kind of like, is something off with him? Hang on a second. He wasn't, and it could even be obviously in how you're responding to an email. Is it within the same time frame as you normally? If you really are very, very responsive and suddenly you're not, what's amiss? And, really sort of checking for those type of things, which takes me back to when you're saying about the monitoring software. So yes, there are certain companies who use monitoring software for more reasonable, as a reasonable solution in some situations.
There's one. I mean, if you attend a webinar, most webinar pieces of software will tell you. Say I'm presenting, it will tell you whether the people are being what they're doing with their screen, as in, are they doing email or are they actually concentrating?
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I did one with GoToMeeting.
Yeah.
And it basically tells you what the other people, whether it's responsive. And that's kind of okay because, I think it's kind of okay because when you're starting off, before you've actually started the webinar, it's very obvious that people are doing other things.
Right.
Then you can see whether but what I've been told is that somebody was able to actually see whether you were doing, they had able to connect to see whether you were actually at your screen and doing stuff.
Well, there is software that can, check, if you have your hands on the keyboard or, are you idle, when you're not in there. But I like the idea that you could actually have that kind of responsiveness, because talking to a screen, sometimes you're kind of like, I want some feedback here. I think that the key thing for me overall is that micromanaging is not going to be helpful. And because we're dealing with extraordinary circumstances, this idea of focusing on results. And so you don't need to focus, micromanage or be monitoring or tracking people as long as they can meet the results. And if they can, and if they can't, then it's a question of, why not? Is it because they have difficult situations at home? Don't they have the technical connectivity? Did their Wi-Fi go? Being sort of thoughtful and empathetic about what the reasons could have been. But if we focus on results, then that kind of stuff should not be necessary.
I think in this time you have to give everybody. I don't know what the term is, but you basically have to. Maybe the term is being empathetic, but I just think if someone hasn't delivered it by a particular date, then they've not delivered it by a particular date, and that's kind of where it is,
Well, also then finding out, sort of leaning in, kind of like, what is going on, rather than coming down with you didn't do this, is a bad thing, XYZ will happen. It's really a question of, practicing empathy and saying, how can I help? And this was very interesting because I interviewed the CMO of CVS Health, who is there, have a huge thing about empathy in their stores, and they manage. It's called. They focus on purpose and empathy, and which they believe actually delivers, I think, $30 billion extra to the revenues. And their response, if somebody doesn't meet their objectives, is to say, how can I help? You normally are able to deliver, to these, to the objectives within this time frame. Is there something going on? And that was an interview I did with him last year. His name is Norman de Greve. And now obviously that, those type of reasons that could be causing someone not to be able to deliver within the right time, within the agreed time frame, are plentiful.
And what is it that we can do to help you to do that? Because we don't have all the ideas, and we're not you, but and so there has to be a level of communication to say, you need to tell me, but quite often the problem actually sits with the leadership, not necessarily with the people.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, Sophie, that's been fantastic. I've been we're up 26 minutes, so it goes really, really quickly.
It does indeed. It does. Indeed.
Sophie, it's been really insightful. I've learned a lot. Every day I think there's something about leadership that you can learn. And none of us are perfect. And it's been fantastic you talking through about, especially today, where it's so important that we support our employees, because we try to know what we're going through, but we've, as I say, we've got people that are by themselves right through to, they can't get to the PC without walking on Lego, so.
And as these restrictions start easing, there are going to be a lot of people who are very scared.
Yes, I am.
And going back to the office and trying to manage that, trying to assess that, I think is going to be the next 2-3 weeks, 4 weeks are going to. the more that leaders can be empathetic, the better, really, because I think it's going to be tough.
And I think, I had a call with somebody in Germany today, and they're as confused as everybody else, because there is no one size fits all.
No.
Response. So it's very difficult for governments to basically say this is what it is, because everybody will rebel against it anyway. But it's in Germany, you've got the government, it's then very federal, and then you've got towns within that. So it's a bit and then you have that in the States, you've got that in the UK. So there's lots of countries where and we don't know. Nobody knows.
Yeah,
government don't know. We don't go.
And to be more cautious and be more thoughtful about it is going to be the best strategy. And that really having that individual approach, having sort of understanding that different offices are going to need different ways of working and supporting each person and their particular conditions. It's going to be complicated.
So anyway, before you go, Sophie, we actually have Annette Maresh watching. She would have just found this. I don't promote before, but yeah. I don't know if Annette, if you have any questions, but she has actually said and left a comment that it's very helpful.
Oh, good.
So I don't know if you have any questions, Annette. If you want to, we've also had Eric just join us as well.
Okay.
Eric 6787. But so we're just finishing up, and Sophie will take questions if there are any questions. Otherwise, we'll close it down. But
great. And if anybody does have any questions, they can always come over to my profile on LinkedIn or on Twitter at Sophie Wade, and I'm very happy to answer questions. We're trying to navigate a lot here.
Yeah. So you're Sophie Wade on LinkedIn. And your website, what was that? You mentioned that at the beginning.
It's Flexcel Network, FLEXCEL network.com.
Fantastic. Sophie, you've been a star. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's been a great pleasure.
So isn't that wonderful? Thank you.
Wonderful.
You've got a review in 15 minutes around empathy. Isn't that timely?
Nice. Okay, excellent. There we go.
Thanks,
Made a
Dorothy.
difference.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Take care.